shadow, and light. The extraordinary journey of a warrior. Born for courage. The storm raged outside the abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of Detroit as Jasmine entered the world, third in a litter of 7 German Shepherd puppies. Even then, there was something different about her. A certain alertness in her eyes, a particular tilt to her head when sounds echoed across the concrete floor. The breeder noticed it immediately. "This one," he told the visiting police K-9 unit commander. "This one's special." By 6 months, Jasmine stood tall among her training class, her midnight black coat accented with rich tan markings that seemed to glow under the training field lights. Her ears, perpetually alert and perfectly erect, missed nothing. Her mind, sharper than the teeth she kept hidden until commanded, processed information with almost supernatural speed. But it was her eyes that everyone remembered, intelligent, piercing amber pools that seemed to look not just at you but through you, reading intentions before they became actions. Officer Michael Reeves was assigned as her handler when she turned 1. Their bond was immediate and unbreakable. Where Michael went, Jasmine followed, her body perpetually positioned between him and potential threats. They moved as one entity, communicating through subtle gestures and glances that required no verbal confirmation. In training scenarios, their times broke department records. In certification tests, evaluators used words like extraordinary and once in a generation. By her 2nd year of service, Jasmine had assisted in over 40 arrests and detected narcotics worth millions. But statistics couldn't capture what made her remarkable. The way she could sense danger before it materialized, how she could track scents others declared impossible, her uncanny ability to distinguish between threats and innocence even in chaotic environments. What nobody knew then was that these skills would soon be tested far beyond the controlled environment of police work. That Jasmine's story wasn't just beginning. It was advancing toward a crucible that would reveal the true depth of her loyalty, intelligence, and courage. The shadow operation. The rain pelted against Jasmine's fur as she moved silently through the abandoned shipping yard, her paws making no sound against the wet concrete. Officer Reeves followed 3 steps behind, his breathing controlled and even. Around them, the tactical team moved into position, shadows among shadows. They were tracking the Kovalev Syndicate, a Russian organization that had established a stranglehold on the Midwest drug trade. Intelligence suggested that tonight's shipment contained not just narcotics, but also human cargo, women and children destined for unspeakable fates. Jasmine froze suddenly, her body becoming perfectly still except for her nose, which twitched almost imperceptibly as she processed the complex tapestry of scents. Her head turned sharply toward a warehouse at the far end of the complex. Reeves understood immediately. Their target had changed locations. With hand signals, he redirected the team. Jasmine led them through a labyrinth of shipping containers, past rusting equipment, toward the darkest corner of the yard. When she stopped again, crouching low, Reeves knew they had arrived. Inside the warehouse, voices murmured in hushed Russian. Jasmine's ears flicked forward, her mind cataloging and differentiating between speakers. 6 men, heavy weapons, and something else, a chemical smell that made her hackles rise. The raid was supposed to be straightforward. The team would breach, Jasmine would locate the narcotics, and arrests would follow. But when they crashed through the doors, they found the warehouse nearly empty. 2 low-level guards raised their hands immediately. Reeves sensed the trap too late. Jasmine's urgent bark came just as a hidden door opened and gunfire erupted from the shadows. The tactical team scattered, returning fire. In the chaos, Reeves saw Jasmine lunge toward a figure escaping through a rear exit. He followed, unaware that they were being led away from the team, isolated, vulnerable. The last thing Reeves remembered was a sharp pain in his neck as a tranquilizer dart found its mark. As consciousness faded, he saw Jasmine charging toward his attacker, her teeth bared in fury, before another dart struck her mid-leap. Depths of loyalty. Jasmine awakened first, her system processing the sedative faster than her human partners. The room was dark, damp, smelling of rust and mildew. Her body felt heavy, uncooperative, but her mind raced with clarity. Nearby, Reeves lay unconscious, his breathing shallow but steady. Blood trickled from a wound on his temple. Steel shackles bound him to a support column. His tactical vest, and weapon were gone. Through a small, filthy window, pale moonlight revealed they were in some kind of abandoned factory. Jasmine worked her way to Reeves, nudging him gently. When he didn't respond, she began methodically licking his face, an instinctual action to revive him. Minutes passed before his eyelids fluttered. "Good girl," he whispered hoarsely, the familiar phrase bringing a slight wag to her tail despite their dire circumstances. Voices approached from beyond a heavy metal door. Jasmine immediately positioned herself between Reeves and the entrance, her body low, ready. When the door swung open, light flooded the room, temporarily blinding them both. The famous Officer Reeves came, a voice thick with a Russian accent. And his remarkable dog. "I've heard impressive things." The man who stepped into the room was tall, elegant in an expensive suit that seemed out of place in their squalid prison. Dmitry Kovalev, the organization's leader, previously known only from surveillance photos and intelligence reports. What followed were hours of interrogation. Kovalev wanted to know how much the police had discovered about his operation, who had informed on him, what evidence they possessed. When Reeves refused to answer, the violence began. Jasmine lunged at the first man who struck Reeves, but a chain they had secured to her collar pulled her back painfully. She fought against it until her neck was raw, snarling with a ferocity that made even the hardened criminals step back. "Remarkable loyalty," Kovalev observed. "Perhaps we should see how far it extends." They dragged Reeves to another room. Jasmine's howls echoed through the abandoned factory, a sound so filled with anguish it seemed barely canine. For hours, she worked at the chain, ignoring the pain as metal cut into her skin. Her focus remained absolute. Reach her partner, protect him, save him. When the chain finally broke, she didn't hesitate. Following Reeves' scent, she navigated through the labyrinthine building, avoiding guards, moving like a shadow. She found him barely conscious in a makeshift interrogation room, alone temporarily while his torturers took a break. With methodical precision, Jasmine chewed through the zip ties binding his wrists. Reeves could barely stand, but with Jasmine's support, he managed to rise. Together, they made their way through the factory, the dog leading, stopping at corners to listen, choosing paths that avoided detection. They escaped into the night just as alarms began to sound behind them. Reeves, despite his injuries, pushed himself to keep moving, one hand buried in Jasmine's fur for support and guidance. By dawn, they reached a highway where a passing trucker spotted them and called for help. The mission had failed. The shipment had been moved. Kovalev and his lieutenants escaped. But something crucial had happened. Reeves had seen Kovalev's face up close, could identify him beyond any doubt. And Jasmine had memorized his scent, a complex signature she would recognize again no matter how much time passed. Warriors return. Recovery took months. Reeves' injuries healed slowly, leaving scars both visible and hidden. Jasmine never left his side, her vigilance extending even to hospital rooms and physical therapy sessions. At night, she would still sometimes awaken with a start, her body tense, ready to defend against threats that existed only in memory. When they finally returned to duty, something had changed in both of them. They moved with a new intensity, a deeper purpose. Their focus shifted from routine police work to narcotics investigation, specifically targeting the networks that supported operations like Kovalev's. Over the next 2 years, they became legends in the department. Jasmine could detect drugs in quantities and hiding places that stumped other K-9 units. She could track suspects across impossible terrain, through water, past chemical deterrents meant to confuse K-9 noses. Reeves became known for his meticulous investigations, building cases that resulted in convictions where others saw only dead ends. Together, they dismantled operations across 3 states, working their way up the supply chain, always searching for connections that might lead back to Kovalev. The Russian had gone underground after the failed warehouse operation, his organization restructured, his methods changed. But Reeves and Jasmine were relentless. The breakthrough came on a rainy Tuesday in April. Intelligence suggested a major shipment was arriving at a private airfield outside the city. Multiple agencies coordinated for the operation, with Reeves and Jasmine assigned to the primary search team. The plane landed at midnight. As officers surrounded the airfield, Jasmine led Reeves toward the cargo hold. Her behavior changed suddenly. Ears back, body tense in a way Reeves recognized from their captivity. Before he could react, gunfire erupted from a nearby hangar. In the chaos that followed, Jasmine detected a familiar scent. Without hesitation, she broke from formation, racing toward a figure escaping through the airfield perimeter. Reeves called after her, but his voice was lost in the gunfire and shouting. Jasmine followed the scent into the surrounding woods, driven by recognition and memory. The figure, one of Kovalev's lieutenants, fired at her as she closed the distance. A bullet grazed her shoulder, but she didn't slow. When she lunged, her teeth found his arm, bringing him down with practiced efficiency. But others were waiting. As Jasmine held the lieutenant, something struck her head from behind. The world went dark. Descent into darkness. Jasmine regained consciousness in a moving vehicle, her body wedged into a small cage. Blood matted the fur around her left eye, and pain radiated from her skull with each heartbeat. Through her one functioning eye, she saw unfamiliar men speaking in hushed tones. Kovalev wants the dog alive, one said. Says it's personal. The journey lasted hours. When the vehicle finally stopped, Jasmine was transferred to a concrete room with no windows. A chain secured her to the wall, with just enough length to reach a filthy water bowl. Days blurred together in that room. Sometimes men came to taunt her, occasionally striking her through the bars of a makeshift gate. She never showed fear, meeting each approach with a steady gaze from her one good eye and a low growl that made even the boldest hesitate. What her captors didn't realize was that beneath her defiant exterior, something remarkable was happening. Jasmine was pregnant, carrying puppies conceived during her last cycle before the airfield operation. As weeks passed in captivity, her body changed, preparing for birth despite the harsh conditions and minimal food. Kovalev visited once, standing at a safe distance, studying her with cold curiosity. "The loyal partner," he said softly. "Your handler searches for you still, but he will never find this place." Jasmine memorized his scent again, refreshing the signature in her mind, storing it alongside the memory of Reeves' voice, his commands, his praise. 3 months into her captivity, in the darkest hour of night, Jasmine gave birth. 3 tiny puppies, whimpering softly as she cleaned them with gentle strokes of her tongue. She positioned her body to shield them from the draft that perpetually blew through the room, keeping them warm against her stomach. When guards came the next morning, she growled with new ferocity, her maternal instinct amplifying her already formidable protective nature. Surprisingly, the birth changed her treatment. One guard, younger than the others, began bringing extra food, clean water. He would watch the puppies with an expression that resembled wonder. Jasmine observed him carefully, noting the patterns of his visits, the times when he came alone. As the puppies grew stronger, Jasmine's determination crystallized into a plan. She would not die in this concrete prison. She would not allow her children to suffer the same abuse she had endured. She began testing the chain methodically, applying pressure at different angles, searching for weakness. Salvation's unexpected form. Sergeant Thomas Wells had been working narcotics for 15 years, long enough to recognize patterns in criminal behavior, to develop reliable informants in unlikely places. One such informant mentioned an unusual security detail at an abandoned meat processing plant, armed guards protecting what appeared to be an empty building. Under ordinary circumstances, Wells might have passed the information to the appropriate team for follow-up. But something made him investigate personally. Perhaps it was instinct, perhaps fate. He conducted surveillance for 3 days, observing guard rotations, noting deliveries. When he spotted the young guard leaving through a rarely used side entrance, looking nervous and carrying what appeared to be raw meat wrapped in butcher paper, Wells made his decision. He followed at a distance. The guard walked several blocks before turning into an alley. Wells watched as he unwrapped the package and pushed it through a small opening in a boarded-up basement window. Then came the sound that changed everything. A soft whine, followed by the unmistakable high-pitched yips of puppies. Wells waited until the guard left before approaching. Peering through the gap in the boards, he saw first the puppies, tiny bundles of fur scrambling toward the meat, and then their mother. Even in the dim light, he recognized the distinctive markings of a German shepherd. But it was the reflective tactical collar, still fastened around her neck despite months of captivity, that made his breath catch. The collar that all K-9 officers in their department wore. The collar that belonged to the police dog who had disappeared along with a major drug shipment 3 months earlier. Breaking in required careful timing. Wells waited until the guard shift change, when attention would be divided. The basement window, already compromised by the guard's food deliveries, gave way with minimal force. The space was tight, but Wells managed to squeeze through. Jasmine was on her feet instantly, placing herself between the intruder and her puppies, a low growl rumbling in her chest. Wells remained still, speaking softly. "Easy, girl. I'm police. Like you. I'm here to help." He removed his badge slowly, holding it where she could see and smell it. Jasmine's posture changed subtly, her head tilting as she processed the familiar scent of police station, of authority, of something adjacent to home. The chain presented a challenge, too strong to break by hand and attached to a concrete anchor. Wells returned to his car for tools, then made a second entrance. This time, Jasmine watched him work without aggression, seeming to understand his intent. When the chain finally gave way, Wells gathered the puppies into his jacket. Jasmine followed him without hesitation, limping slightly, but moving with determination. They exited through the window just as shouts erupted from inside the building. Her absence had been discovered. Wells drove directly to the nearest emergency veterinary hospital. Only when Jasmine was safely inside, receiving treatment, did he make the call to the K-9 unit. "I've found her," he said simply. "I've found Jasmine." Chapter 7. Recognition and Remembrance. The reunion between Reeves and Jasmine became department legend. Her single functioning eye lit with recognition the moment he entered the veterinary hospital. Despite her injuries, despite the veterinarian's cautions about her weakened state, she pulled herself up and moved toward him with unwavering focus, her tail sweeping in joyful arcs. Reeves knelt before her, his hands gentle on her scarred face, his voice breaking as he whispered her name again and again. The puppies, curious at the commotion, tumbled over each other to investigate this new human who smelled of their mother's past. Medical examination revealed the extent of Jasmine's ordeal. Permanent blindness in her left eye from blunt force trauma, malnutrition, scarring around her neck from the prolonged chaining. But her spirit remained unbroken, her intelligence and loyalty intact. While Jasmine recovered at Reeves' home, Sergeant Wells led a raid on the meat processing plant. They found it hastily abandoned, but forensic evidence confirmed it had been used by Kovalev's organization. The young guard was apprehended trying to flee the city and provided valuable information in exchange for leniency. Kovalev, however, had vanished again, slipping beyond their grasp like a shadow at noon. As weeks passed, Jasmine's strength returned. The puppies grew rapidly, their personalities emerging, one bold and adventurous, another thoughtful and observant, the third a perfect balance of both. Reeves officially adopted all four, converting his modest home into a sanctuary for his expanded family. Department policy stated that Jasmine's injuries disqualified her from returning to active duty. She was officially retired, with honors including the department's Medal of Valor, the first time it had been awarded to a K-9 officer. But retirement didn't diminish her alertness or her memory. Jasmine adapted to civilian life while maintaining the disciplines of her training. The puppies learned from her example, absorbing her watchfulness, her responsiveness to subtle cues. Reeves transferred to Sergeant Wells' Narcotics Division, his focus narrowed to a single target. Kovalev remained at large, but intelligence suggested he had returned to the city, operating under deeper cover but unwilling to abandon the territory he considered his domain. Fate's convergence. Autumn painted the city park in golds and crimsons as Reeves walked Jasmine and her now half-grown puppies along familiar paths. These weekly outings had become routine, a chance for exercise and normality amid their continued investigation into Kovalev's whereabouts. That particular Sunday began like any other. The puppies explored enthusiastically while Jasmine moved with the measured pace of a seasoned professional, her single eye scanning constantly, her nose sampling the air with practiced efficiency. Near the central fountain, her behavior changed abruptly. Her body stiffened, her ears swiveled forward, and a low growl vibrated in her chest, a sound Reeves hadn't heard since her retirement. He followed her gaze to a man seated on a distant bench, reading a newspaper, ordinary in every visible way. But Jasmine was never wrong. She pulled against her leash with uncharacteristic insistence. Reeves, trusting her instinct implicitly, allowed her to lead him in a wide arc that brought them near the bench without directly approaching. As they passed, Jasmine's growl deepened. The man lowered his newspaper slightly, his eyes meeting hers for just a moment. In that instant, recognition flashed between them, predator and prey, captor and captive, connected by memory and hatred. Dmitry Kovalev, disguised with subtle but effective alterations to his appearance, sat less than 20 feet away. He stood quickly, folding his newspaper with deliberate calm, and walked toward the park exit. Reeves, maintaining the pretense of a simple dog walk, followed at a distance. Jasmine tracked Kovalev's scent with unwavering focus, leading Reeves through crowded sidewalks, past shops and cafes. When Kovalev entered a luxury apartment building, Reeves withdrew, gathering the puppies and Jasmine into his car. He contacted Wells immediately, reporting the sighting and location. "Are you certain?" Wells asked, "The implication's enormous." "Jasmine is certain," Reeves replied. "And that's enough for me." Justice unleashed. The operation took weeks to plan. Surveillance confirmed Kovalev's identity and mapped his organization's new structure. Financial investigations revealed a complex money laundering operation using the very apartment building where he resided. Electronic monitoring captured conversations that provided evidence of ongoing criminal enterprise. Through it all, Jasmine remained key to their planning. Though officially retired, she accompanied Reeves to surveillance locations, confirming Kovalev's presence through scent even when visual confirmation was impossible. Her puppies stayed with Wells during these operations, growing stronger and more disciplined under his temporary care. The raid was scheduled for December 15th, coordinated across multiple locations simultaneously. Reeves, despite objections from superiors, insisted on being part of the team assigned to Kovalev's apartment. Jasmine, though not officially participating, waited in the tactical vehicle, her energy palpable, sensing the significance of the moment. At precisely 5 a.m., teams moved into position. The operation proceeded with textbook precision until the moment of breach at Kovalev's apartment. Warned somehow, he was ready. Gunfire erupted, wounding 2 officers. Kovalev escaped through a pre-prepared exit route, disappearing into the building's service corridors. In the tactical vehicle, Jasmine heard the shots, heard the radio calls reporting Kovalev's escape. Before her handler assigned to vehicle security could react, she forced her way out of the partially open door. With the unerring instinct that had defined her career, she raced into the building, following a scent trail imprinted in her memory through suffering and resilience. Reeves, helping his injured teammates, looked up to see Jasmine running past, her purpose unmistakable. Without hesitation, he followed. The service corridors led to an underground parking garage. Jasmine tracked Kovalev to a waiting vehicle, launching herself at him just as he reached for the door handle. Despite her age, despite her injuries, she struck with the full force of justice delayed but not denied. Kovalev fell beneath her weight, crying out as her teeth found his arm. The same arm that had once given orders for her torment, for Reeves' torture. He reached for a concealed weapon, but Reeves was there, weapon drawn, voice steady. "Police, don't move." Kovalev, pinned beneath Jasmine's unwavering grip, looked up at Reeves with hatred that quickly dissolved into resignation. He recognized defeat when it stood over him, one-eyed, scarred, but undefeated. Legacy of light. Spring returned to the city, bringing with it renewal and justice. Kovalev's trial concluded with multiple life sentences. His organization was dismantled, its assets seized, its members imprisoned or turned informant. The case became a template for cross-jurisdictional operations, studied by law enforcement across the country. For Jasmine, life settled into peaceful rhythms. Her puppies, now fully grown, had found their own paths, one joining the K-9 training program under Wells' sponsorship, another becoming a therapy dog working with veterans, the third remaining home as Jasmine's constant companion. The department created a special retirement facility for police dogs, named in Jasmine's honor. She visited often, moving among younger dogs with the dignity of a living legend. Handlers brought trainees to meet her, telling her story as inspiration for the next generation of K-9 officers. On quiet evenings, Reeves would watch Jasmine on the porch of their home, her single eye reflecting the setting sun, her body bearing the scars of battles fought and won. In those moments, he understood that some partnerships transcend training, transcend duty, becoming something rare and precious. Jasmine had begun her journey as a police dog, evolved into a warrior, endured as a survivor, and emerged as something greater, a symbol of loyalty that no darkness could extinguish, no cruelty could break. Her story, whispered among officers and K-9 handlers, became more than record or report. It became legacy. In her twilight years, as younger dogs carried forward the work she pioneered, Jasmine's contribution remained undiminished. It lived in training protocols developed from her experiences, in security measures implemented because of her ordeal, in the renewed appreciation for the bond between handler and K9. But most importantly, it lived in the simple truth she had demonstrated through every challenge. That courage is not the absence of fear but the triumph over it. That loyalty is not tested in ease but in adversity. And that even in the darkest circumstances, even with wounds that never fully heal, the light of spirit can remain undiminished. This was Jasmine's gift to those who knew her story. Not just what she did, but what she was. A reminder that sometimes the most profound strength comes in forms we least expect, and that heroism can walk on four legs as surely as on two. The silent heroes among us. Every day across America, modern-day Jasmines walk among us. Their forepaws steady on city streets, their vigilant eyes scanning airport terminals, their sensitive noses detecting dangers we cannot sense. These K-9 officers represent an extraordinary partnership that transcends the boundary between species, a bond forged in trust and cemented through shared purpose. In police departments nationwide, German Shepherds and their handlers stand ready to risk everything for communities they serve, often with little recognition. Their stories of bullets dodged, lives saved, and perpetrators apprehended rarely make headlines. Yet these canine officers endure rigorous training, face deadly threats, and demonstrate intelligence that challenges our understanding of animal consciousness. Behind closed doors, after badges are put away, these dogs become family, curling up on living room floors, playing in backyards, bearing silent witness to their handlers' quiet struggles. When injured in the line of duty, they don't complain. When facing overwhelming odds, they don't retreat. In their unwavering loyalty, we glimpse something profound about courage, that it doesn't require understanding the full scope of danger, only the conviction to move forward despite it. Perhaps this is why these partnerships move us so deeply. They remind us that heroism, in its purest form, transcends words, requires no explanation, and asks for nothing in return. Thank you for watching this heartfelt story. We hope it touched your heart and left you with something meaningful to reflect on. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, leave a comment to share your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss more inspiring stories like this. Your support means the world to us. See you in the next video.